Our first presenter is Dr. Les Vo. He is an Associate Professor Emeritus and an Extension Specialist in Forage Systems at the University of Maryland in College Park. And today Dr. Vo is going to talk to us about the revised fertilizer recommendations for the cool season grasses. And those of you that have downloaded Newman Pro 4.0 recognize that there have been some changes in those recommendations. So Dr. Vo is going to give us the background for that. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Vo, and I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Heather, and good afternoon, everyone. We'll soon be, well, matter of fact, there are fertilizer spreaders already working on the shore, and it won't be long until they'll be working probably pretty much across the state. Up until the last several years, I've been of the opinion that late winter, essentially the green up, was the most critical time to apply nitrogen fertilizer to our grasses. In recent years, I've come to conclude that late winter green up application is probably the least critical of the four splits that we have in our nitrogen recommendation, and that the late fall one is the most critical. And we'll get into some of the reasons for that in just a minute or two. But if we look at what are the revisions that we've made in the recommendations, we're not making major changes. Basically, we've cleaned up some discrepancies, but we're not really changing the overall total rate. Some minor adjustments. There were some minor differences between grass species that we've evened out. But say other than cleaning up some of the discrepancies, we're not changing the total rate. But we have added a late fall nitrogen application, and we've reduced the green up nitrogen rate. So as we'll see a bit later, what we've done is taken 40 to 50 pounds off of the late winter green up application and have now put that into the late fall period. Why are we interested in a late fall nitrogen application on your cool season grasses? For one, the late fall application increases root growth. Enhanced root growth is going to aid in nutrient and water uptake during the following growing season. That's going to help carbohydrate buildup on our stem bases and in the rhizomes of our sod-forming grasses. So overall, it promotes winter survival and a more vigorous plant to initiate growth in the spring period. Late fall application also increases plant density, and if we have a denser stand, that enhances the formation of crown buds, subsequently more tillers the next spring. So we not only see better root growth, but we also see a denser ground cover. And if we have increased root growth, we have increased plant density, it increases drought tolerance. So the plant is going to be able to withstand dry conditions the following growing season much better. A denser stand is also going to decrease the amount of summer weed invasion. So our late fall application of nitrogen has several benefits. And the low rates of nitrogen in the fall set up the plant for better winter hardiness and for earlier and more healthy early spring growth. If we look at late fall fertilization of grasses, our general recommendation in the past has been not to apply nitrogen after mid-September, because nitrogen application in mid and late September tends to disrupt the development of winter hardiness. So we still want to avoid that application during that time period. 40 to 50 pounds of nitrogen applied from mid-October to mid-November, depending upon where you are in the state. At that time, there's going to be little top growth on the plant. the plants have basically stopped producing top growth, but the soil is warm and the roots are still active. So that's when we generally get our predominant root growth is during the fall period. Some of the work that was done at Virginia Tech a number of years ago, what they saw with the late fall application of nitrogen to hay crops, pasture as well, it sometimes increased spring yield, not always, sometimes it didn't, but it was never detrimental to the stand. We need to use highly soluble sources of nitrogen, for that late fall application. The organic sources will not provide the same effect. So in this case, it's going to be an inorganic source. It needs to be, quickly and readily available. The late fall applications have been shown to improve root growth, spring growth, stand density. We've already, touched on those. And either maintains or improves the forage yield. Again, this is what was shown in the work that was done primarily by Dale Wolf at Virginia Tech. And as we'll see, a little bit later, this fall application, depending upon the yield goal, may entirely replace the late winter nitrogen application. If the yield goal is less than 4 tons for most of our grasses, there is now no nitrogen recommendation at green up, but it's not going to replace that recommended application that would be after first cutting, or the late summer application that would be in August or early September. This is just an example of a situation where although this is not pasture, shows the effect of a late fall application of nitrogen on a lawn. On the right side, it had a late fall application of nitrogen. The left side of the picture, the neighbor there did not fertilize. And this is just another view a little bit closer. You can see the difference in color and the difference in the density, and just a view in the opposite direction. Now the downside of that is that I had to mow my lawn 3 times. Neighbor had to mow his at all. So when is late fall? Obviously, it's going to vary by location. In Western Maryland, that time period is going to be mid to late October. For the rest of the state, it's going to be late October to mid-November. So during this time period, the top growth for the most part has stopped, but the soils are still warm, the roots are active, and we'll see the benefit. It's roughly around the time of the average killing frost date. If we look at what the recommendation asked for maintenance of tall fescue, and if we look at the 4-ton yield goal, how about getting the pointer? If we look at the 4-ton yield goal, the total is 150 to 200 pounds, and the top dress at green up is 75 to 100 pounds, and kind of keep that figure in mind. If we then go to the current, the revised recommendation, notice that at the 4-ton yield goal, what was 75 to 100 pounds is now 35 to 50. So we've taken 40 to 50 pounds off of it, and put that down as a top dress application in late fall. If the yield goal is less than 4 tons, there's no nitrogen recommendation. And if you go above 4 tons, then the nitrogen rate increases. So say what we've done is from the previous recommendation, taken 40 pounds off of that green up and put it in the fall. The recommendations for after first harvest for late summer basically remain the same as they were before. That was for where it would be a typical either hay or pasture. There wouldn't be any late summer growth accumulated for fall or winter grazing. If we look at the recommendation where we're going to accumulate the late fall and winter, essentially a fall safe fescue program, because we're not going to start grazing those pastures until ideally early to mid-November, possibly even later. We don't have the opportunity to put that nitrogen on in late fall. So in this case, we've maintained the green up applications because we're not doing it in the fall. We have pulled back some on what the recommendation was previously. That was 75 to 100 before. We pulled it back to 60 to 80 pounds, and the applications top dressed after first harvest and in late summer basically remain the same. If we look at orchard grass and reed canary, the previous recommendation was 80 to 100 pounds at green up, and then 2 splits, 40 to 50 pounds after first harvest, 40 to 50 pounds in late summer. If we look at the revised recommendation, again we've taken 40 to 50 pounds off of the green up application. So if our yield goal is 4 tons, we're 35 to 50. No nitrogen recommended if our yield goal is less than 4. And our applications after first and in late summer remain essentially the same. So what this is doing is at the lower yield goals, placing the late fall application is replacing the green up application. If we look at timothy, smooth brome grass, and perennial ryegrass, at the present time, in the previous recommendations were 80 to 100 pounds at green up, and the 60 to 80 after first, 40 to 50 in late summer. If we look at the revised recommendation at a 4-ton yield goal, in this case, because these are essentially one-cut grasses, we get most of our growth in the spring. We typically don't get much out of them in midsummer, and then we'll get some growth again late summer and fall. We still have taken 40 to 50 pounds off of the green up application, but here at a yield goal of 3 tons per acre, we do have a nitrogen recommendation. And again, because we're getting most of our growth from these grasses in the spring of the year, we're trying to stimulate that spring growth, because we cannot make up the sensitivity they have to the heat of summer. We're not going to get the summer production out of them. So we're keeping that some nitrogen in at a 3-ton yield goal. This, I think, falls more in line with what most of, particularly the timothy growers, are doing, especially if they're only in a 2-cut system. they're not going as heavy on their nitrogen recommendations as they would, or on their nitrogen applications as they would if it were an orchard grass or a fescue. So the application for these grasses is a bit higher than it is for the other grasses. Again, the late fall application must be from the inorganic, readily available sources. We can't be using manure for that late winter application. And going through it fairly quickly with that. If there are any questions, be glad to respond to questions.
Okay, there are a couple of questions coming in there, and Trish, maybe we already have this. The question was, Les, could we get a printed version of the recommendations to share with the farmers? And I believe that is that part of the regulations now?
We provided the information to Maryland Department of Agriculture to update those tables in the recommendations, and we have not yet done so because we're dealing with more pressing issues. But they do have the information to update the stuff that used to be in SFM1 that got moved over into the regulatory document. If you wish, we could put something together in the interim.
I can make the PDF copy of the PowerPoint available. Question on what crop code should we use for Red River crabgrass establishment, and Trish and I have talked about that before the session started, and for the time being we're going to use the Bermuda grass code. It's of the warm season grasses we have, I think Red River crabgrass will be closest to the recommendation for Bermuda grass. Bermuda grass is probably going to start growth a little bit quicker than crabgrass, but that's the closest we have right now. As we get a little more experience, we'll probably break crabgrass out as a separate code. I think we're going to see more crabgrass. I just learned late last week that King's AgriSeed is going to be marketing an improved crabgrass variety, not Red River, but another one. They have it available now. How much do these recommendations change in a pasture situation? And at this point, we have one recommendation for hay and for pasture. So they're the same, with the exception of tall fescue, where it's being saved late summer growth for grazing in the fall and the winter. But aside from the fall save fescue, the recommendations are the same whether it's hay or pasture. Question on how important is phosphorus and potassium at green up. Can producers hold off until the second split to apply their P and K along with their N? One of the things we're seeing, especially with orchard grass, is that potassium is just as important, if not more important, with orchard grass than it is with alfalfa. And it's definitely tied in with winter hardiness. So ideally, I would say that the P and K would either go on. My first preference would be in the late summer, so it's there in the fall when the plant is developing winter hardiness. But either what would be equivalent to after first cutting or that late summer application. If you wait and put it on in the fall application, that's a little too late. comment. I think the fall dates are reasonable, but describing these as late fall gives the wrong perception. It should be looking at a December application when leaching losses would accelerate. Maybe better to say mid-fall. And they will consider that. They somewhat struggled with it. Generally, it's when you look at what the turf industry, and that's where we really got started on this. But I don't have a problem with changing it from late fall to mid fall.